I think what has come through to me so clearly is the passion with which you've embraced changing your life and the speed at which you've done the work to do that. And what I'd like to do for today is to really cast you back a little bit first and then walk you forward with where you are now. And it wasn't always easy for you, was it?
No, not at all, no. In fact, it was getting to the point where I was finding it very difficult to live with, which is why I wanted to make some changes. And I think that actually is what spurred me forward, is the fact that I had embraced the notion that I needed to change, and that's why I came to see you. So
brilliant. So leading on from that a little bit, do you mind talking a bit about where you were and a bit of context of how you got to that dark place that you were in?
Yeah, I mean, basically, for a lot of my life, I had been living. It's not really a lie, but I'd been living with something in my past that had been haunting me that no one else knew about, and it was actually shaping my behaviour. It was having a very negative impact on my life, and I had come up with all sorts of coping mechanisms with how to actually deal with the impact it was having on me. So for a lot of people, they were blissfully unaware that there was anything in my past that was causing me the angst that I was carrying around with me. But
So you'd covered something up that nobody else knew about.
Yeah.
And you were carrying that around.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd been carrying it around for approximately, it was getting close to 40 years. So it had been influencing my life for that long. And it was one of those things where it just was gnawing away at me. So I was, I'd say that I was able to function at a high level. But it was just one of those things that was always there, always a nagging feeling that was influencing my life. And also because of choosing various different coping mechanisms that weren't actually the best for me, it was, having an impact on my health as well. So, I was using, at times I was using food, sometimes I was using alcohol. And these weren't the best ways of actually dealing with my problem. But unfortunately, as human beings, we always have the quick go-to, how can I get rid of this issue instantly? And that's what I was using as coping mechanisms. So it wasn't serving me in the long term, it was only helping me in the very, very immediate short term. Well, I thought it was helping me in the immediate short term, but it wasn't, because I was feeling rotten after the effects had worn off, and also I was impacting my physical health because I ended up carrying a lot of weight as well. So, one of the things that I've done recently, part of my journey, is to actually lose a considerable amount of weight as well, which wasn't doing me any good. So I think it's about 8 or 9 stone now that I've shed. So again, it's all this baggage from the past that I've managed to sort of lift and let go of. So it wasn't very good for me. And it was something I felt I couldn't share with others. So it was a burden I was carrying on my own. And it got to a point where I just needed to actually confront it, face it head on, and actually deal with it, because I was getting to the point where I thought, I am significantly reducing my lifespan if I continue with this bad behaviour. It wasn't serving me at all, and it was actually impacting my life in terms of my work and my family life as well. So
that's an incredible strain, isn't it? Thank you for sharing that, because people around you, you said, wouldn't have realised the depth of your despair at times.
Well, my immediate family knew there was something, but they didn't know what it was.
So even your immediate family,
so my
didn't
wife,
know.
My children, they didn't know what the actual issue was that I'd experienced as a child. I mean, I was abused by a female relative as a child, and that had a significant impact on me. But it was something that I just felt I couldn't share with anyone. But it did change me as a young teenager. So it had a significant impact on me as a person. And for a very significant portion of my early adult life, I was a complete mess, completely off the rails. And it was only when I met my now wife that I actually managed to sort of claw my life back into some sort of semblance of order. I was terrible with finances. I was terrible at basically everything in my life. I was mixing with the wrong people. I was in a self-destruct pattern and just spiralling downwards out of control. So yeah, it got to the point where people were actively avoiding me because I was so toxic. And there was very little I could see in ways of actually coping outside what I was actually doing. And then, as I say, it was only when I met my now wife that I actually saw that there was a future and that I should change. However, it didn't actually get rid of the underlying issues that I was dealing with, the baggage I was carrying. So
So you put another layer on top.
Effectively. So I worked out a new way to cope. And again, not the best way to deal with it. You know, it was one of those things where I had to find alternate ways of functioning. And when you do it on your own, you don't come up with the best methods. You just come up with sort of the quick fixes and the quick wins. Now, through my wife, I actually started looking at various things that I could do, such as self-help and actually seeing other people to actually find out if there were ways that I could address the issues. But I never actually found anything, and I wasn't really at a point where I thought I could actually embrace change. I wasn't at a point where I realised I had that big of a problem. Because when you're young, you're kind of fairly resilient and you bounce back from things. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it was something that I did manage to bury and keep fairly suppressed. I mean, I was using coping mechanisms, but it was something that I managed to sort of bury, suppress and just keep on top of for a significant amount of time. And it still shaped me moving forwards as an adult, and it still was having an impact. And it was only over the course of time that it was actually having more and more of an impact on me, both physically and mentally. And I got to the point where I just felt that I needed to actually make change. And that's when we started working together. And that's when we had the breakthrough date, which I think because I was actually ready to embrace change, it had such a massive and significant impact on me. So that was and the interesting thing is, from that day, you know, it was a shock to everyone that knew me, and the fact that, you know, my kids said, "It's the first time I've ever seen you smile." After that day, you know.
So literally, father's walked out the door and gone somewhere to see somebody and do something, and then come back as almost a completely different person.
And the thing is, as well, is all my coping mechanisms that I used to use, they've gone. So again, for the children, they saw a huge shift in my behaviour, change for the good. So, and the nice thing is, I'm there as a person for them now, you know, whereas in the past, quite often I wouldn't be. I would be away in my own little world trying to cope with the demons that were haunting me, and they no longer exist. So that's something that's
That's amazing, isn't it?